Pete Davidson and Elsie Hewitt have broken up. Sources confirmed the news today, and within minutes of that confirmation hitting the internet, Pete Davidson's name was trending on X in the United States. Because that is what happens now whenever there is news about Pete Davidson and a relationship. The entire machine kicks into gear almost instantly. The takes, the timelines, the lists of every famous woman he has ever dated, the debates, the memes, all of it. Immediately. But before we get into any of that, let us slow down and actually talk about what happened here and who the people involved are, because there is a real story underneath all the noise. Elsie Hewitt is a British model and actress. She has been building her career for several years, completely independently of Pete Davidson. She has her own work, her own audience, and her own professional identity. She is not a celebrity who became famous because of a relationship with someone else. That matters because the way the media and the internet process this breakup tends to center Pete so completely that Elsie becomes almost a footnote in her own story. She is not a footnote. She is a person with a career and a life, and she is going through something genuinely hard right now. The detail that makes this breakup different from all the previous ones in Pete's public history is that Pete and Elsie have a child together. That changes everything about how you process the end of a relationship. When there is a child involved, a breakup is not a clean ending. It is a restructuring. The two people will be connected to each other for the rest of their lives through that child. Every birthday, every school event, every holiday, every milestone. The relationship between Pete and Elsie does not end. It transforms into something else, something harder in some ways and requiring more maturity and more sustained effort than the relationship itself ever did. Sources are saying that both Pete and Elsie are focused on co-parenting their child and navigating this transition together responsibly. That is the right framing. That is what you want to hear when two people with a child separate. And whether or not we take that statement entirely at face value, the fact that it is the message being put out tells you something about the intentions of at least one side of this. Now, let us talk about the conversation that exploded on X today, because it was loud and it was predictable, and it was also more complicated than it looked on the surface. The moment Pete Davidson's name hits the trending topics for relationship reasons, a very specific kind of post starts flooding the timeline. It is the post that lists every famous woman Pete Davidson has been linked to in the last 8 or 9 years. The list is genuinely extraordinary by any measure. We are talking about names like Ariana Grande, Kim Kardashian, Kate Beckinsale, Emily Ratajkowski, Phoebe Dynevor, Margaret Qualley, Kaylee Cuoco, and several others. That is not a normal list. That is one of the most talked about dating histories in modern celebrity culture. And every time a new chapter ends, the internet pulls out the full archive and starts the discourse over from the beginning. One side of that discourse says the pattern itself is the story and raises serious questions. Another side says Pete Davidson is a man in his early 30s who had public relationships that did not work out, and that this is called being a human being and not a pattern that requires diagnosis from strangers on the internet. A third side is purely in it for the entertainment and the memes, and is not making any serious claims at all. And a fourth side, his actual longtime fans, is genuinely worried about him and hoping he is okay. Here is what that entire conversation tends to flatten out. Pete Davidson has been one of the most publicly honest celebrities of his generation when it comes to mental health. He has spoken openly about being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. He has talked about the trauma of losing his father, a New York City firefighter who was killed in the September 11th attacks when Pete was just 7 years old. He has talked about addiction and recovery. He has talked about the relationship between his mental health and his public life in ways that most men in entertainment simply do not do. That took courage. That still takes courage. And when every relationship ending gets turned into a punchline or a ranking exercise, that human reality gets buried under the noise. The noise is louder and faster and more shareable than the real story. That's just how the attention economy works, but it's worth naming. The real story today is that two people who tried to build something together were not able to make it work. They have a child who loves both of them, and now they are going to do the most important thing either of them has ever done, which is figure out how to be great parents to that child from two separate households. That is hard. It's quietly hard in a way that doesn't generate viral content, but it's the thing that actually matters most about everything that happened today. We wish Pete and Elsie both the best. Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.